Good morning, LinkedIn friends. Welcome to another episode of Value First AI Daily. It is Thursday, July 24th, 2025. How are we doing, Nico?
We are doing good, Chris. Doing good. Just got past some minor computer errors. But we're doing great now. Uh, yeah, a lot of change in thought this week too. So it's not a lot of not just a lot of like tech release and oh this is coming out, no that's coming out. But a lot of discussion around thought processes and even more specifically, which I'm starting to hear even from people inside different organizations, uh, philosophy and like philosophical application towards what it is that we're doing, right? Um, yeah, just
Change,
it's interesting
change is afoot, apparently.
at the
People
very
are
least.
understanding. uh,
Yeah, I mean,
welcome in, folks.
it's it it's just like, I mean, we've been talking about, obviously we've been talking about it, but we talk about like change and the way things are going to change, and we talk about tools all the time, and we talk about the way in which um we're going to use different things, what that does to the economy, what that does to jobs, all that kind of stuff. One of the things I don't think we touch on enough though is how how we mentally cope with what's coming. How do we, like, because it's not just I read a oh, I read them all the time. They're really super difficult sometimes. The only thing I can liken it to is there's a really awesome bit. This is very much what it's like for me when like I'm reading uh, a non-user's comment, and or like a never gonna user's comment. To me, it's like there's a clip from Hassan Minaj's podcast where he's with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and deGrasse has to ask him like 10 science questions, and he's not allowed to say anything at uh, Hassan's answers, which are obviously ridiculous, right? Like he's just like, yeah, tides are caused by like, I don't know, like the moon, and then it's got something to do with like gravity, I'm sure, but who knows? Like, it's like deGrasse just has to sit there. So I can't help myself though. I sometimes have to reply. There was a gentleman, apparently a very high level IT person, and said that him and the rest of his IT kin laugh at the technology, and they laugh at the fact that people are using it because years from now, they will have forgotten all the basics and they'll, blah, blah, blah. My immediate response was like, oh my gosh, dude, you are, whoo, oh my God, you're so right. I think we should go back to cuneiform. I can't believe we forgot cuneiform. We have we completely abandoned the abacus? My God, like what are we doing to ourselves? Where did Latin go? What are we doing with this English shit? Like, yeah, it's called evolution, right? Like at the end of the day, it's called evolution. And yes, you should at some point let go of building blocks, the basics, right? You let go of Legos, you move on to bricks. Let go of bricks, you move on to cinder blocks, you let go of cinder blocks, you move on to I-beams, right? It just on and on and on. Like that's the way it's supposed to go, because otherwise it's stagnant. You just stay where you're at, right?
Yeah.
And the whole thing of like, oh, but if you keep going down this road, it's going to break, and then all of a sudden you're gonna be looking for programmers again. You're gonna be begging developers and programmers to come back. Yep. I gotta tell you, when my car breaks down, the first thing I look for is a stagecoach. If I could, I wish there were payphones everywhere. I can't believe I can't find a payphone anywhere. It's ridiculous nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Meanwhile, one of the most important IT infrastructures in business can't fix a patch right now. Like, yeah. Uh, no, I want you to share that comment. You quoted Sam Altman in a post, and there was a good exchange after that. I think that sets up a good way to make this conversation a little more practical than we usually go. Usually, I'll take it to scarcity versus abundance, but I've got some ideas for how maybe we can create some steps on the way there.
So I was watching Theo Vaughn's. I do not watch it often at all. The only reason it popped up was because Sam was on the show. It was
Yeah.
Theo Vaughn's podcast.
And like this is serendipity at its finest. Like I would have had no clue who this person was had I not just been like doom scrolling Netflix the other day through and like catching all the comedy like thumbnail clips and just going
Mhm.
through all the stand up. And then his was on there and I was like, oh, and it like labeled him as like podcaster and comedian. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I saw his clip and I'm like, I know exactly what his podcast is about now, probably. Uh, and then you share that clip. I was like, okay. And then of course I saw a couple of the first comments and I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, it's yeah, like yeah. Theo, he is the more modern, I guess, Larry the Cable Guy. Um, and so it is obviously interesting to put that personality in the same room with a person who is on the edge of discovering super intelligence, right? Like
Yeah.
that's awesome. And it really was. I had, some preconceived stuff about it, but and the questions that Theo put out there were, you know, what that's what I liked about it though.
Yeah.
I thought that was the perfect episode for anyone who like wants to hear the like actual answer from the people building the stuff to a lot of the basic questions that people have, right? And they were, I mean, really great answers in some cases. And I think there were like a couple questions where he was just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So like it's not again, like they don't have it all figured out in the same way that, people are like, oh, well, then why do they keep making it? Ford keeps making new engines, even though they haven't figured out exactly what it is. You know what I mean? Like it's science, man. It just anyway. So Sam's talking to him, and Theo asks him at one point, like, "Is there anything that surprises you about like what it is that you're doing?" Right? Which Sam's been surprised a couple times, specifically by like what the GPT-4 series has been able to do. But he said this thing that was interesting, and he was like, "Somebody emailed me a question and I didn't take the time to answer it. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to figure it out right at that time. So I gave it to GPT-5 and it gave me the exact right answer. And I was really kind and I really kind of sat back in my chair, had a oh man, here it is moment." And that's from Sam, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not, I know that 5 is like 2, maybe 3 weeks away or whatever. Like August is almost here, height of the summer, makes sense. Um, I'm really like I'm really eager to see what that is like, what that looks like, right? We're going again, however, and it's weird, right? Because people say like, "Oh, it's so smart, but it can't blah blah blah." I know genius level people that can't yo-yo.
Right.
So, I mean, are they not geniuses anymore because they can't yo? You know what I mean? Like we have to be
Yeah.
willing. It's kind of like the magnets thing. There's got to be a basis at which we're willing to accept. Like, no, they are smart. It's just like they're beyond that thing, and they just don't do that thing enough.
Yeah. No,
So
I
yeah,
think
I can't. I like to me it's kind of crazy. I don't know what that looks like. That the exact right answer, right? So I'm, and it's like, and it was like, oh, it was good, so he just shipped it, and it's like, man, so it even said it in the right way, like broke it
yeah.
down in the right way, like all of that.
No, I've been feeling that all morning. This has been one of those content explosion mornings. And like and it started with the comments um on your post, right? Of um like, oh, the assumption is that what happens when Sam just gives all the decision making over to GPT-5? highly unlikely. Like,
I gotta stop you there. Theo asked him that, like, in the interview, right? He's like, "What happens? You know, you keep going, you keep going." He's like, "Do you see yourself like automating yourself out of being a CEO?" And he was like, "You know, it's like I wouldn't mind it." This is so like to what so what Chris was getting at is like there's been a couple people who talk about and not just a couple people who talk about it. MIT did a study, Harvard did a study. There is a trend, right? And it's I look at it this way, so it's going to be a little freaky. Hold on to your butts. Um, there is this trend of cognitive decline with the use of Gen AI. Okay, that is definitely something understandable in the same way as like cognitive decline would happen if you shoved your brain full of too much of anything at too early a stage. I hate to say it, but if like you're young enough and you shove your brain full of Instagram, you're gonna have a little cognitive decline. If you shove it full of TikTok, if you shoved it full of a specific YouTube channel on turtles, right? Like it doesn't matter necessarily what the content is, right? Now,
decline,
obviously, yeah,
unless you
like
want to be like the foremost expert on turtles,
yes, of course,
right?
right,
And I think that's where what came to mind, because it's like assuming that he's going to lose critical thinking skills and decision making skills, like it's just going to change his focus, like,
right,
and that's where what my feedback um, was like, since a gym, it's like going to the gym, like maybe he needs that extra rep. Like maybe that's his 20th decision of the day,
right.
right? And it would never have happened if he didn't have AI right there, right? And when we can multiply, like if we have the bandwidth for 8 decisions, like at a strategic level, and now AI can enable 10, 16, 80, 800,
Hmm.
right? It it's for me, it widens the gap. It probably widens the intelligence gap, humans, but I wasn't anticipating the podcast being a great example of that. Like the floor is not going to change though,
Right.
right? Like cuz like it's pretty well established what the floor is. The ceiling's obviously going up, and this relates to Mo Gadot talking about IQ, just augmentation, right?
Mhm.
And where my mind went is at the end of 23, I read a book called The Gap and the Gain. And it is all about how humans focus on the gap and never think about what's been gained
Mhm.
and never look back of how far we got. And, there's so many studies to support like the reason you put moonshots out there is it takes you in a certain direction. And even if you only make it 60, 80% of the way, you're 60 or 80% farther like than
Than
you
you would have.
were, right? And there's so much value in seeing that. The next book from those guys, which I also have to get better at attribution, uh, uh, was like 10x is better than 2x or something like that, right?
Yep.
And it introduced me to the concept of like it's okay to just do something because you want to do it.
Yep.
And that's how all of the geniuses and all the people who make change, like whether it's artists or scientists or whoever, that's how they get there. They don't feel like they necessarily have to justify based on need,
Mhm.
right? And those two things like come together greatly. So when, yeah, if Sam stops going to the gym, he's going to lose all the muscle. Like,
Right.
but
Right.
what are the chances he stops going to the gym? Probably
Yeah.
pretty low, right? And that's like the magical thing is that I've like I'm pretty passionate about value first stuff. There's so much in my mind that I would love to like, just share and get out there. Almost none of it, like value first would not exist if it wasn't for AI. It would just still be a thought in my head. Maybe I don't even remember it anymore. because it's from last year. All this stuff comes to pass that would have never come to pass. And for me, it's the difference between humans could do something versus humans would do something, right?
Mhm.
Like, of course, I'm capable of making 5, 10, 20 decisions in a day, but would I most days?
Right.
Like, the higher the numbers, I just run out of time. I run out of attention. Like, it's not because I don't want to or because I can't,
Yeah.
right? And when you can't, but because we're limited on our own bandwidth, people get left behind. Progress doesn't get made. Value doesn't get created.
Right.
Why wouldn't we want to fill that gap?
But, at the same time, to me, this just looks like it's like the hype curve. We've just never like I don't know. We have like we've been through technological change, right? So again, with the whole like evolution or whatever, it's like anybody still using like TI-86s, right? Like anybody still using those like solar powered like 12 panel calculator? No. But like we've made it through these various changes. We've gotten to where we're at now, right? And to your point, like my only response realistically was we'll think of something else, right? Like, okay, so I don't have to do this anymore. All right, I'll do this now, right? And at the same time, there is something to be said about like those people, again, I think it's a hype cycle in that we don't rely, like, who pulls out your phone or a calculator, even if you're bad at math, right? Who jumps straight to their phone or calculator to do the math? It's not as high a percentage as you would probably think. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, and I'm not saying that the percentage couldn't be high. I'm just saying it's probably not as high as what you would think. And that's because we do, to Chris's point, we have that whole, we, at the end of the day, we have this sort of thing in the back of our minds that's like, we have to do the thing. We have to be the one that does the thing, right? So like even if you're terrible at math, you want to give it your best effort before you have to rely on this thing, right? And I think
Absolutely not.
that's I think that's yeah, look, if it's division, that's a totally different ballgame, right?
Right.
Um, but I think it's gonna be the same way, right? That like, yeah, okay, we're in love with it and we're infatuated with it for now, right? But I really don't think that the majority of us are going to sit there and just be like, yeah, yeah, screw thinking, machine go, right? Like
Right.
you that would mean so again, this is why the philosophical part of things is coming back because for people to be able to say that X is true, which is that okay, people are going to drive themselves into cognitive decline. The balance to that, the Y is people want to drive themselves into cognitive decline. You have to have the want to actually do it, right? Like alcohol's out there. I don't go get drunk every day, right? You know what I mean? Like it's just one of those things where like you have to also make the cognitive decision, right? That like I'm going to rely on this thing instead of using my own brain, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what to tell you. It's like, yeah, if GPT weren't here, right? Were we saying like that's what's funny is like up until this, was there a story about like kids using calculators to cheat in math too much or something? You know what I mean?
Oh,
Probably like there
yeah.
probably would have been if they would have investigated, right? If anybody bothered looking into it, we'd probably see those numbers sort of like increasing over time a bit. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't
Right.
heard about it since like the TI-86 came out and people were like, "Oh, that calculator's too smart.
Well,
It
no,
can do
there's
too much."
definitely like rules against using calculators
Oh,
like
yeah. Yeah,
that,
on tests and stuff, yeah.
right? And that's the thing, like what the line of thinking I'm on this morning is like, because I've been thinking about ADHD and like how I've never been the one. As soon as a better path was available, like the
Take it.
calculator, like why in the world would I? Why would you make me do it in a less efficient way? Like, it just doesn't add up, right?
Right.
And so I started talking with Claude about how, like, um, this concept of like brain energy and this mitochondrial dysfunction possibly being like the underlying foundation of all of neurodiversity stuff that's going on.
Mhm.
And like, if biologically we're built to always take the path of least resistance that has the best ratio of like value outcomes, like positive value, right?
Yep.
Literally, we won't even have to make a conscious decision like to use AI as a tool in this way. Our brains are built to save calories from critical thinking if not necessary,
Right.
right? That's what like everything behind StoryBrand and the way you build your website. If you make people think, they automatically like don't want to be on the page anymore. And that is their brain. Like, we're biologically built to do that. So when somebody puts that in front of us and we know the outcome is something positive, we're biologically built to do that. And then when we get the dopamine hit, it's like confirmed,
Yeah.
continue, please
Yeah.
repeat, right? Like, some of it will be conscious decision, but most of it will not be. That's why I'm over here saying, like, next year you won't be worrying about navigation in
No.
software. Like, nobody's gonna care whether it was made by a human or a robot or whatever. So
Nope.
this whole concept of like human first, AI first, it's just it's what we do to try
Right.
and like figure things out and make sure we're still important. But it's completely the wrong framing to understand, what's happening right now. And the fun thing to think about, and probably scary for most, is that this kind of change, like as opposed to the other ones we talked about, like evolutionarily, it's gonna be like ripping the band-aid off, like
Oh,
in a
yeah.
way that we've never experienced before. And people might not even have time to like freak out in some
They
cases.
really
It's
won't.
just the quality of life is just automatically gonna like up level.
And it's like the yeah, the transition being rough is like that's putting it so light. Um I don't when I say that, right? I don't mean a lot of people talk about the doom and gloom aspect of it. That whole thing, like whether it's going to be abundance, whether it's going to be doom and gloom, our species has been nothing but the best at bringing what we think in our minds is going to be the worst thing, like bringing it into fruition, right? So our future in that case just it sits on a knife's edge, right? It's really up to government, either for the better or for the worse. That's just the way that's going to break down. What I mean when I say it's going to be rough is like people, and this isn't a slight. This is really how you have to think about it. I think we were talking about this the other day. Or no, I don't think I was talking to somebody about this recently. That in the same way in which it's insanely difficult to get somebody in like Northeast Asia or like Kenya to be able to care deeply about environmental protection enough such that they stop burning garbage for copper wiring and stuff so that they can sell it to be able to feed their families. I don't know what we do with certain areas of our country. I don't know what happens with other certain areas of the world, right? I do definitely see this like great divide happening super rapidly. And I think the closer that you are to the, I guess, technological breakout, um, I don't know that it's like the better. I just know that it won't. I don't know. I'm not saying this is happening anytime soon, guys. Just take it easy. Take it easy. But I am getting dread, like Judge Dread, like feelings in terms of like mega cities, let's say. There is one of the reasons why I moved to Ohio. There's the talk of Ohio becoming the Silicon Valley of the Midwest. There's good reason to move here because if there's going to be a future city here, I would love to be at ground zero. I
Yeah,
missed out on Google Fiber. Don't want to have that happen again.
right.
Um, so yeah, I do. I see that separation happening, and I do think it's going to be very, very tough for people who are, you know, out in rural Nebraska, even here in rural Ohio. Um, it's gonna be really tough because it's not gonna be, it's gonna be like, I guess if you had to measure it, right? Our generation is perfect because our generation was born just before computers and we're here, right? So we have been through all of that, right?
Analog
Um,
plus digital. Yes.
right. Compress all of that into the next 12 months. Compress that much level of change into the next 12 months. That's what I mean when I say it's going to be rough. So, like, learning email it's not even like learning stuff is going to be difficult. It's just the change. Like Chris is talking about, it'll be embedded in your life in such a way. I swear it will be embedded in your life in such a way that you will look back and say, wow, I can't believe we actually even managed to do shit without this. Just like GPS, right? I'm
Yeah.
sure if you talk to your kids today about trying to go somewhere not using GPS, they will look at you weird and be like, wow, what? And you tell them, like, yeah, we used to use a paper map and we would just stop on the side of the road and take a pencil and mark where we were and shit. They probably just looked at you like you were Columbus,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
So,
man. Yeah. No, this will be a recurring theme, I'm sure.
mhm,
For me, the first step is I think we're starting to feel it. Like people are understanding a greater change is happening. And then it becomes, I still have close people and I'd love to get into your duty paradigm at some point because like, and I started talking about this with George last year when he like the happiness pillar of the superhuman
mhm.
framework. People are going to need help figuring out what do you want to do now? Like if you don't have a job, and that's going to 100% rely on them understanding what makes them happy. And most people don't really, a lot of people don't know the answer to that question.
No,
Um,
I'm there. Most people, I'm there.
yeah.
I agree with
So,
that.
so, time's up already. Man, these are some great conversations. I'm so happy and grateful that we get to do this every day.
Seriously.
So until tomorrow morning, man, have a
Yep.
good day. Thanks,
See
everybody.
you guys.